Lesson 5.3, Decimal Equivalents. Every fraction can be converted into a decimal. The following fractions and decimal equivalents must be memorized. These are called benchmarks. These fractions will help you understand the conversions between decimals and fractions. Now, here are your benchmark fractions. Please make sure you have them memorized. We will eventually have a quiz on them. Notice also, with the one that's a tenth, if you know 1/10, you can figure out 4/10. You can figure out 8/10. It just makes it very easier to do the conversions. I will give you more specifics and details on it in class tomorrow and show you exactly how that works. Okay, to convert a fraction to a decimal, you divide the denominator into the numerator, and you have to add a decimal point and zeros as needed. So the first one here, we're going to divide 20 into 7, put a decimal and 2 zeros to start with. Bring your decimal point up. Well, 2 does not go into 7, but 2 goes into 70 3 times. 3 times 20 is 60. Subtract, you're left with 10. Bring down the 0. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 5 times 20 is 100. Subtract, you're left with 0. We have now completed it, so our answer is 35 hundredths. Now pause the video and set up 5/12 and start dividing that one. So you divide 12 into 5, add a decimal and 2 zeros to begin with. Bring your decimal point up. 12 does not go into 5, but 12 goes into 50 4 times. 4 times 12 is 48. Subtract, you're left with 2. Bring down the 0. 12 goes into 20 one time. 1 times 12 is 12. Subtract, you're left with 8. Well, we don't want remainders, so add another 0 and bring it down. Well, 12 goes into 80 6 times. 6 times 12 is 72. Subtract, you're left with 8. Add another 0. Bring it down. 12 goes into 80 6 times. Gives you 72. Subtract, you're left with 8. You should notice at this point that it's going to continue and repeat. So your final answer should be 0.416 with a line over the 6 to designate that it's repeating. Now, every rational number that you get should be a terminating or repeating decimal. Terminating, remember, means that it stops or it ends, and repeating means a digit is going to keep repeating, at least one digit. Okay, now we can also convert fractions into decimals and decimals into fractions. In this case, what we're going to do is convert the decimal into a fraction by putting it over the place value column. So if you look at number 3, it's read as 175 thousandths. So we would write 175 over 1,000. And then you would have to divide the numbers into 175 and 1,000. Well, 25 goes into both of them, so you can divide them both by 25. And you can do that if you think about money. If you have $1.75 or you have $10, quarters will go into it. So 25 goes into 175 7 times, and 25 goes into 1,000 40 times. And that will be your simplified fraction. Okay, take a moment, pause the video, and see if you can simplify 36 hundredths. So you write 36 over 100. What goes into both of them is 4, so divide them both by 4, and you end up with 9 over 20. Okay, so anytime we want to compare rational numbers, there are 3 ways of doing it. We can find a common denominator and change it to equivalent fractions. We can use cross multiplication and compare the numbers that came out. Or we can change the fractions into decimals. Okay, so sometimes you'll be given a list of numbers like this, and you'll be asked to put them in order from least to greatest. Remember, we are looking to see which numbers are bigger. Okay, to put decimals in order from least to greatest, we usually look to see that all of the decimals have the same number of places behind the decimal point. If you'll notice, there are 3 numbers that are repeating. They are, the first one here, where the 1 is repeating, this one here where the 7 is repeating, and this one here where the 5, 7, and 1 is repeating. Since we want each of the numbers to have 4 places behind the decimal, and we've decided on 4 because 2 of the numbers go up to 4 places, so we want the others to have the same number of places, we're going to add zeros for ones that are not repeating. So this would be a 0. Then I will add 3 zeros here. I will add 2 zeros here. However, on the first one, since it's a repeating 1, I'm going to add a 1. On the third one, it's a repeating 7, so I'm going to add 7s. And now I can compare the numbers and put them in order from least to greatest. I start out by comparing the numbers that are in the tens column. Remember, the tenths column is the column that's right behind the decimal. Well, then obviously you can see that 0 is smaller than all of the others, so that is going to be your smallest decimal. So the smallest number is 0.0571. Then we say it's less than, and now we look for the next smallest number. Well, if you compare all of your numbers without decimal points, the next smallest number is 0.5711. Then it would be 0.5714. Then it would be, okay, the next decimal in order would end up being 0.5777, then 0.5790, then 0.5900, and then finally 0.6000. Now, if you write the numbers without all the zeros on it, those would be your original numbers. So what we can end up doing is crossing off all of the zeros that we annexed at the end in order to compare the numbers. Okay, that concludes our lesson for today. Remember to write down any questions that you have, and we will go over them in class tomorrow. Have a great day.